But you made such a great point, and you laid out the case for the fact that it is a major distraction. So that was the point. That was the point, a major distraction, because when everyone's looking at that, they're not looking at under the radar financial deals, are they? They're not delving into everything else that the palace don't want you to look at. I wanted to get on to something really important related to the briefing wars. Now, I loved your article that you wrote about the fact that, sources from the palace, said that appalling quote about the Queen, about her leaving an unexploded bomb for Charles in the way she dealt with Andrew. And you did a really passionate piece defending the late Queen, and I thought it was wonderful. And I just want to provide some timeline for people quickly. Andrew Loney made us aware that the Queen did bury her head in the sand, did look the other way, was more of a mother than a monarch during that 2001-2011 Special Representative trade period. But you make a valid point that from 2017, when Andrew and Charles got rid of Christopher Guite, then it's on them. And they have no right to make it about the Queen past that point. I'll hand over to you because you really made some great points in that article.
Yeah, I mean, this has definitely been in the ether, right? This has definitely been like seeding out like fungal spores from comments and social media that did the Queen know more? What did the Queen know? Did the Queen not do enough to stop Andrew? So that's been a bit of a theme that's been building, and I think it's absolutely historical. It's a matter of public record that the Queen did turn a blind eye, that she was indulgent towards Andrew, and that even after he had been had the settlement with Jouffre and that he had his titles withdrawn and this and that, she did allow him to walk her into her memorial service for her husband on her arm. But do you remember when the Queen walked into that memorial service on Andrew's arm? Do you remember the gasps that greeted it? People were really shocked, and the palace was very, very quick to get a message out there saying, do you know what? This is a woman who lost her husband. She wasn't able to have a proper funeral for her husband. She had to sit on her own in that absolutely tragic photograph of the Queen sitting on her own at St. George's Chapel with a black face mask on for her husband's funeral. And yes, Andrew is out of the picture. We've seen him today, but we're not going to be seeing a great deal more of him, if any of him ever again. And the last Christmas that the Queen was alive, which is 2021, Andrew was not allowed to go to church at Sandringham. And ultimately, when the Queen died in 2022, I believe that the settlement she bequeathed Charles around Andrew was practical. It seemed to be working, it seemed to be holding, and it seemed to be tolerated by the public, which was, you're never going to see him again, right? Basically, that was it. And immediately, Charles started undoing it. Andrew was given a major ceremonial role at the funeral. Now, I'm not saying he shouldn't be allowed to pay tribute to his mother, but it's different. It's like she's the CEO of a company, of an institution. It's different, to give this man who presumably Charles knew everything about, because he was involved in the payoff to Jouffre. He oversaw it and rubber stamped it. It was crazy. Why was she put? And then there was all this dispute about whether Harry could come, whether Andrew could come, all of this kind of stuff. And whatever you may think of Harry and his treachery to the royal family, which I absolutely believe that he was completely wrong to write that book. He actually hasn't been accused of sex crimes. Do you know what I mean? As he himself says in his book. So I think that the bringing of Andrew back in began on day one, and it's Charles, the Queen, put a lot of distance between the royal family and Andrew, and Charles decreased that distance. he had them for so many different events, which, I mean, you know, we can list and we can go through, but everybody knows what they were. They were Christmas, they were Easter, they were the Knights of the Garter, they were this, they were that, they were Fergie at Buckingham Palace, they were, you know, and to invite Sarah Ferguson to join the family for the Christmas Day walk, the most important photograph in the United Kingdom's national consciousness, maybe not quite, maybe the second most, maybe the most important is the balcony photograph at the Trooping of the Colour. But this walk to church, I would say, is well up there in the top 3 photo calls of the year. What on earth was she doing there? Charles knew all about it. They knew all of this stuff in Andrew Loney's book, and that's why they didn't want Andrew testifying or being deposed, because they knew what would come up. Why on earth was she there? And for Charles's team to have the gall to blame his disastrous decision-making on Queen Elizabeth is the most ridiculous and ill-advised form of gaslighting. Because do you know what, Shauna? We all know what we saw. We know what we saw. We saw a very, very dutiful monarch who served for 70 years and with absolute dignity and very, very rarely put a foot wrong. And we've seen what it's been replaced with, an absolutely chaotic administration where everything that can be done wrong is being done wrong. And this is where it's ended up. It's ended up in this complete mess of, you know, Prince Andrew, Royal Lodge, sitting in Royal Lodge while the heir to the throne is in a little cottage outside Windsor Castle. I mean, it's just, the whole thing is completely mad. And I just felt that for him to blame, try and weaponize Queen Elizabeth II's legacy of service, I just felt it was absolutely ridiculous. And I'm very glad to say that it seems to have vanished as quickly as it appeared. There's been nothing further about it.
I was glad to see that too. Also, I wanted to give people your quote because I think it was wonderful. A grotesque slur and unworthy of the office of king. It wasn't very honourable, was it? And I think that's what we're sort of seeing. None of this is very honourable. I want to pick up on you, not in a predictable way, but I have thought very deeply about that statement about as bad as Harry may seem to be, he hasn't committed a sex crime. And that is very, very true. And I was thinking about it. I was thinking, well, then what is my position? Because I have to have a position on this. And I thought, well, I know what it is. It isn't that he did anything, it's what he accused others of. And I think the most awful one was Catherine being a racist in his book. He overwhelmingly implied it.